So much to get into on the Stephen A. Smith Show today. A big-time trade took place in the National Football League. LeBron James is opening his mouth about a roster that, dare I say, he laments. And, of course, Joel Imbiid is back in action. So much stuff to get into, so little time. But we always find it right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Come holler at your boy. Let's get started in the NFL, where the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills made waves this morning, finalizing a trade that moves four-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. The Bills are trading Diggs along with a 2024 sixth-round pick and a 2025 fifth-round pick in exchange for Houston's second-round selection in 2025. The move would officially end Diggs' tenure in Buffalo. As for Houston, they've now surrounded quarterback C.J. Stroud with a big-time wide receiver. You know I've been talking about this for the longest time. You know I've been telling y'all Diggs went out. He finally got his wish, and it ain't a bad situation that he's in. You're talking about C.J. Stroud. This brother is spectacular, the offensive rookie of the year. He's absolutely spectacular. A lot of people are projecting he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League next season. You got Tank Dell. You got Nico Collins. You got Dalton Schultz. You got Joe Mixon. You got a whole bunch of cats that are doing big things for the Houston Texans, not to mention the defense led by defensive rookie of the year in Will Anderson out of Alabama. You know what DeMeco Ryans, who, by the way, tied Kevin Stefanski for Coach of the Year honors in terms of numbers of votes, but they had to go to the tie-breaking scheme because they had to look at it and said, hey, he got more first-place votes than DeMeco Ryan, the guy in Cleveland. I'm talking about Kevin Stefanski. In the end, what it comes down to, if you're Stefon Diggs, is this. No excuses. We know that the first 6 games of the year, first 5 or 6 games of the year, you had averaging about 103 yards in receptions. The last 11 games, it dipped to 51. And in 16 touchdowns that Josh Allen has thrown over the last 3 years, not a single one came to you. We also know you dropped that pass in the postseason. We know you're big time. We know that. But in the end, no more griping, no more moaning about the situation, opportunities, missed opportunities lost. This is it for Stefon Diggs. We know what a big-time talent he is. But being in Houston, you can't ask for a more ideal situation for him and his talents, particularly with what they're building in it. I love what they're doing in Houston. I got to give props where props is due. We'll see what this materializes into, but we can all hope and anticipate that it's going to be a big-time deal. Who better to talk to about this than my next guest, the man who broke the story. He's my colleague at ESPN, the ultimate insider himself, the great Adam Schefter. Honored to have you on the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube. What's going on, man? How are you? How's everything?
Honored to make my maiden voyage on the Stephen A. Show, Stephen A. It's awesome to do. Thank you.
Man, thank you so much. Why did this trade go down? Talk to us about Stefon Diggs and his time in Buffalo and what led to him ultimately being traded to the Texans today.
Look, how many times have we heard about Stefon Diggs wanting out of Buffalo, whether it was from him or from his brother tweeting about the fact that his brother was underappreciated, underused, not getting what they should out of him. And so there have been so many different messages along the way. Let's go back a year ago. Stefon Diggs is not at the Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp. The Bills head coach at the time, Sean McDermott, says it's a major concern that he's not there. They meet the next day, and he's back on the field. Now, what was that about? We never really heard the full truth, but there's been smoke surrounding Stefon Diggs' happiness or lack thereof in Buffalo the last couple of years. It certainly has seemed, as you're saying, Stephen A., as I have heard, that he's wanted out of Buffalo. And now he finally gets his wish. It looked like down the stretch, they tried not to use him at certain times, that they were trying to prove that the offense could overcome not having to feature him. And so this is a relationship that ran its course. The two sides had been moving in opposite directions. And really, I think what happened here is a couple of weeks back, the Houston Texans went to the Minnesota Vikings and initiated a trade in which they got out of the first round, got an extra second-round pick, and they got an extra 2 in that deal as well in 2025. Well, lo and behold, everybody assumed that trade was the Vikings initiating it so that they could go up and get a quarterback. But the truth of the matter was, it was the Texans who initiated that to get out of the first round, to get added draft capital in the second round, the next 2 years, so that they could go be in position to make a trade like the one that they did on Wednesday, acquiring Stefon Diggs at what many people are surprised by the price in the end.
Talk to me about that price. You got a 6th-round pick. You pointed out. I pointed out what they gave up for him. Was that too much? Was that too little? Was it just right what the Houston Texans ended up giving up to acquire a talent like Stefon Diggs? Explain that to the football audience.
Well, it's what the market bore at this point in time, right? And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, Stefon Diggs has been perpetually unhappy in Buffalo. Number two, he's 31 years old. Number three, probably is going to want at some point an adjustment on his contract. Number four, the production, as you pointed out, in the second half of the season wasn't there. So we hear 4-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs. We know what a great player he is, but the Bills don't view it necessarily the same. They view it as somebody that they can move on from and get back a draft pick, so much so that they were willing to eat an additional $3 million against their salary cap this season, which is what happens by trading Diggs to the Texans. It cost them an extra $3 million against their cap this year, but they're out from all Diggs cap charges after this season. So on the one hand, you've got this mercurial talent who's incredible when he's happy and when he's producing. On the other hand, you've got a guy who's 31, who had declining production this year, who wasn't happy in Buffalo, who would like a contract adjustment. And so there's the two sides of the situation and why it came down the way it did today, Stephen A.
How can we look at the Houston Texans at this particular moment in time? You called them mercurial. We know what a big-time talent he is. We know that Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and those brothers can play. What is Stefon Diggs perceived as being able to do for the Houston Texans for this upcoming season, particularly with C.J. Stroud as his quarterback and D'Amico Ryans as his head coach?
Well, listen, you have to operate under the assumption that Stefon Diggs is going to feel liberated and he's going to be ecstatic about the fact that he wanted out of Buffalo and he lands in a place with an incredible young quarterback on a team where, again, he'll be the number one receiver, I'm sure, but Nico Collins is really good. And Tank Dell is really good. And even Noah Brown is really good. They're loaded at wide receiver, at tight end, at running back. I mean, that team is built to win now. And you think about where the Texans were. They were a laughing stock in the NFL
just 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago.
That's right. And now you look at them and you say, they're as good as anybody right now on paper. And we'll see how they perform. But Diggs comes in there because he's Diggs. He comes in as Diggs, Stephen A. He comes in as the alpha, as the number one, as an added weapon. And let's see what he can do. And let's see. I'm going to bet that he responds to the challenge, that he loves the fact that he's in a new spot, and that he responds to his new environment and performs accordingly.
I'm wondering what level of pressure is on his shoulders from this perspective, Adam Schefter. You're departing from Josh Allen. I understand what a stud C.J. Stroud is, but Josh Allen is no slouch. And to be in Buffalo and to find a way not to be happy in Buffalo, you can have folks that'll look at McDermott, they might look at Josh Allen, they might look at the whole situation in Buffalo in terms of changing offensive coordinators, particularly after Brian Daboll took the New York Giants head coaching job. But in the end, if you're a wide receiver in the National Football League and you're perceived as being somebody that was unhappy and was pouting in Buffalo with Josh Allen as your quarterback, what kind of pressure does that put on Stefon Diggs' shoulders? Not just to perform, but to get along in an obviously thriving environment in Houston.
Well, Stephen A., you know what it's like? It's like him and Josh Allen had been in this troubled relationship. They were together for a while. And just think about anybody in any troubled relationship. When they get out after a while, they're only too happy to go on to their next new partner. And in this particular case, I don't view this as Stefon Diggs feeling added pressure about having a new partner. I feel that he will be relieved and happy about connecting with a new quarterback. And there were times, I could think back to the Bills' home playoff loss against the Bengals a couple of seasons ago where Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen were going at it at the sideline. Diggs not happy, voicing his displeasure. There were numerous instances where basically Diggs was unhappy. Even yesterday, you see there the tweet where somebody said, does Josh benefit from having a top-tier receiver? Yes. Is he essential to his success? No. And Stefon Diggs said, you sure? Now, at that point in time, when he tweets that, he has to know that there's a real possibility that he has already played his last down in Buffalo. And I think he's looking for a new partner. He's looking for somebody in his mind, whose commitment matches his, somebody who's as dedicated as he is, somebody who the game and winning and losing matters as much as it does to him. And so I think all those factors come into play here and explain why I don't view it as him thinking there'll be added pressure so much as there'll be added happiness and relief at moving on to a new team and a new quarterback.
All right, if you're Josh Allen, how should you feel? Gabe Davis is gone, and now Stefon Diggs is gone. If you're Josh Allen, how should you be feeling today?
You should feel challenged. You should feel the fact that the top two wideouts on the offense last year are gone, and that if ever there were a time where you're going to be asked to rise to the challenge, this is it. Buffalo is saying the guys that you relied on in previous seasons, the production that they had the last few years was through the roof. And now you, Josh Allen, a franchise quarterback, the face of your franchise, needs to find a way to overcome the loss of a 4-time Pro Bowl wide receiver and another wide receiver that the Jacksonville Jaguars saw fit to pay $13+ million a year to. Now it's up to you, and it's up to Curtis Samuel and James Cook, and a lot of different guys that you haven't even heard of to step in and take the place of productive players in this offense. And so, to me, just like Stefon Diggs is going to be inspired and motivated to go to a new place, well, Josh Allen staying in the same place, but he's going to be inspired, motivated, and challenged to try to achieve new heights.
Just a couple of questions before I let you get on out of here. Challenge is another word for pressure in this particular conversation that we're having right now. If Josh Allen feels that way, what about Coach Sean McDermott? What kind of challenge or what kind of pressure is he on to make things happen? Bills Mafia starving for a Super Bowl championship 3 years ago. We watched them in an AFC divisional playoff game, one of the epic matchups between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Buffalo at Kansas City, the game in which Kansas City won. Ever since then, they've fallen short. They've lost to Cincinnati. They lost in the playoffs again to Kansas City. What are we to make of their coach and his status in Buffalo in light of these changes that have been made?
Well, number one, coaches in the NFL are challenged every year. Okay. Number two, coaches on teams with franchise quarterbacks who don't win regularly in the playoffs are challenged. And number three, just like there was speculation and talk about Diggs' future in Buffalo, there's been talk about Sean McDermott's future in Buffalo. So, of course, he's under fire to produce this year. That goes without saying. That's regular for this particular league and the coaches that are working in it. And so I know Sean McDermott, of course, knows that he's going to have to win, that the pressure's on him, and that if they don't, that there'll be consequences to pay and answers to be had. But he knows that going in, and his job, just like Josh Allen's, became more challenging, having to produce on offense and win games in general without one of the top talented wideouts in the NFL.
I know you know the answer to this question, particularly since this trade just happened this morning. Who do you believe people are looking at in the AFC East as the favorites in light of what's transpired today with Diggs being gone now? Is it Miami? Is it still Buffalo? Dare I say, is it Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets? I mean, who are people looking at in the AFC East now, Adam Schefter? What are they telling you?
Well, I still think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the division. I think the Jets have a lot of talent and a lot of question marks. If they can stay healthy, they'll be able to play with anybody.
Right.
And the Miami Dolphins last year were one of the surprise teams. So, again, it's sort of like mutual funds. Past performance does not guarantee future success.
Right.
And we can't look at last year and apply it to this year. But I think you could look at those three teams, and it would not be a surprise if any one of them came out of the AFC. The surprise would be if New England found a way to bounce back to win that division this year. But short of that, you can make an argument for Buffalo easily. You could see the Jets staying healthy and coming through, and you could see Miami playing at the level it did last season. Again, I think there are major question marks with every team. They all have questions they have to answer. And the team that does the best job addressing those questions in camp into the season will be the one that prevails and likely wins the AFC East.
Very last question. You know I had a smile on my face because I'm smiling at you right now, Adam Schefter. You know what this means to me, right? It means that the Houston Texans might very well be the best football team in Texas. it might be a problem for the Dallas Cowboys right now. I mean, I don't know if I can say that the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Houston Texans coming in the next season, Adam Schefter. Am I off my kilter there a little bit? Am I exaggerating? Am I embellishing? Or might I be right about that?
Stephen A., it is April, May, June, July, August, September. You've got 6-7 months to bask in this, to ride this, to keep laughing and smoking cigars and putting on your Cowboys hat to say, how about them Cowboys? Because you know what? You got a legitimate argument right there that right. Houston is the best team in Texas right now. And you can stand on that and rest easy and enjoy that and ride it for all it's worth, Stephen A. Enjoy the next 6-7 months.
Yes.
And it may be beyond that.
Yes.
Because C.J. Stroud is that good. So the Houston Texans may be the best team in Texas for months, maybe even seasons to come, Stephen A., which I'm sure that would just break your heart. But you know what? Enjoy all that's ahead. Enjoy all that's ahead. Blessings to you, my friend.
The best insider in the business, the one and only Adam Schefter for ESPN, my buddy, my colleague, my friend. I appreciate you so much. He just sat up there and confirmed, America, that I indeed may be right about the Texans being the best team in Texas. Thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, buddy.
Stephen A., thank you for having me on my maiden voyage here.
All right,
thank
my man. The one and only Adam Schefter right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Now let's move on to the NBA, where Joel Imbiid returned to the Sixers, scoring 24 points in his first game in 9 weeks following knee surgery. Embiid put Philadelphia ahead with 4 free throws in the final 40 seconds in a 109-105 victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Look, it's prompting questions as to what noises the Philadelphia 76ers are going to make. I say not much, simply because I don't trust the health of Joel Imbiid. I think as a talent, when the brother is healthy, he's one of the elite big men this game has ever seen. Even when they won last night, they went without the services of Tyrese Maxey. We know how big time this brother has proven to be. Nick Nurse, the new coach for the Philadelphia 76ers, they've quickened their pace. They were averaging more offensively. They were doing a lot of good things, okay? And because of that, the Philadelphia 76ers were incredibly effective when Embiid was out on the court. But the reality is that he came into the league injured. He missed the first 2 years of his career due to injury. He's been injured every single year. This is a brother that literally will get injured walking in his kitchen or walking up the stairs in his house, okay? He doesn't have to be doing anything. You never, ever know what's going to happen to him, which is why I like him on the basketball court, because you got to take whatever you can get from him. You look at the Philadelphia 76ers right now, okay? They're battling to avoid the play-in spot. They're 8th seed, okay? If the season would have ended today, you go up against the 7th seed, you win that game, you go against the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, which will happen to be at this particular moment in time the Milwaukee Bucks. Despite their troubles, losing to Washington the other day, even though Damian Lillard didn't play, I can't bet against the Milwaukee Bucks, against the Philadelphia 76ers squad led by Joel Imbiid, who's perpetually injured. That's my issue with him. Nothing else. The game is pure. It's big time. When he's healthy and he's been on the court this year, you see the numbers right there. 35 points, 53% shooting for the field, averaged 35 and 11 with 5.7 assists. The brother was en route to win back-to-back league MVP awards before he went down. We know how big time he is. We also know that injuries are never, ever, ever far away when it comes from him. That's all I'm saying about him and the Philadelphia 76ers. They go where he goes, and I can't depend on him to go, but so far. Let me move on, okay, because I don't know whether or not y'all have checked out LeBron's new podcast, Mind the Game, with the one and only J.J. Redick. To say this, let me get this out of the way. It's pretty damn good. I give both of them mad credit for it. We should all watch it. We want to hear about the subject of basketball. Those are two brothers worth listening to, no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that occasionally LeBron don't get on my damn nerves, or he won't get on my damn nerves. Because he said something this week that caught my attention about his early years with the Miami Heat, meaning year 1 in Miami. And talking about filling out that roster around him with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Before I even go any further with my opinion, which I will openly confess pissed me off, take a listen to this clip, please, courtesy of 342 Productions and Uninterrupted. Check this out.
My first year in Miami, yeah, we had a big three. And everyone said it's a super team this, super team that. But we had to build our team around all minimum guys, which was still okay, but we didn't fill out the complimentary guys enough. Yeah, we had Rio, we had Udonis, but we didn't have enough as far as enough complimentary guys to actually make it all work. And we still made it to the finals. And we still probably should have won the finals, but I still give credit. Listen, it is what it is. You win and you lose, and we lost. There's no, Dallas was fucking good, and they hit a stride at the right time. Dirk was unbelievable. But my second year, we was able to grab some complimentary players and role players that really just, I'm talking about superstars in their roles.
LeBron James. That is some straight bullshit. You got to be kidding me. I know that you didn't just say that with the cameras rolling. That's bullshit. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. Now let's get this out of the way right now. Put up the roster that LeBron is alluding to. LeBron is telling the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Joel Anthony, Carlos Arroyo, Mike Bibby, Mario Chalmers. By the way, Mario Chalmers could play. Eric Dampier, Udonis Haslem. Udonis Haslem was younger considerably at that particular moment in time. He wasn't some has-been, okay? Eddie House could shoot. Juwan Howard, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, James Jones, Jamal Maglio, Mike Miller, Dexter Pittman. I don't know why Jerry Stackhouse was on there. He's only there for a month. He wasn't on the roster in the NBA Finals. LeBron, you want to make the argument about your roster. I totally understand. But you see, this is why I respect the man. I revere the man. He's number 2 on the Mount Rushmore all time. He ain't the GOAT. This is the reason why. I hope you're listening, Shay. I hope you're listening, Shannon Sharp, who likes to call LeBron James GOAT James. Oh, I want to see what your response is to that sound. Because let me tell you something right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a taste of history. That roster that LeBron James is alluding to, he makes valid points. He's not wrong about the roster. My point is, what the hell does that have to do with you, LeBron? What does that have to do with you? Now, why would Stephen A. ask such a question? Albeit rhetorically. Here's why. Ladies and gentlemen, if you remember in 2011, LeBron James and the Miami Heat, with that roster, were up 2-1 on the Dallas Mavericks before losing 3 straight. Do you know that LeBron James in Game 4 scored 0 points in the fourth quarter? Do you know that in Game 5, LeBron James scored 2 points in the fourth quarter? Do you know that in that Game 4, LeBron James had 8 points? 8! For a career 27-point per game scorer. For a dude that's approaching age 40 and averaging damn near 25. That LeBron James. 8 points in an entire Game 4 of an NBA Finals. 17 in Game 5, but only 2 points in the fourth quarter. And in Game 6, he had 21. Significantly and precipitously lower than his average. This wasn't about the roster. You didn't lose to the Miami Heat because of your roster. You lost to the Miami Heat because of you. Because you weren't who you are. The LeBron James that ultimately learned to become a champion. The LeBron James whose resume elevated and changed forevermore. Who showed us that he could be a champion. Who reminded us again by winning back-to-back championships. Who ultimately years later overcame a 3-1 deficit and beat the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. You weren't that dude in 2011. I don't give a damn about no roster. You had D. Wade. You had Chris Bosh. You had the Haslems and the Eddie Houses and the Mike Millers of the world. You had a 2-1 lead in the NBA Finals. And guarded by everybody from Jason Kidd to Deshaun Stevenson to J.J. Barea to Jason Terry. There was an APB out for you in the fourth quarter. That was not about your roster. That was about you. Period. There's no way around that. I don't care about the roster. The roster didn't stop you from averaging over 25 throughout the season. The roster didn't stop you from getting to the finals. The roster didn't stop you from being up 2-1 in the finals, even when Dirk Nowitzki was scoring points. What stopped you was that you were nowhere to be found in the fourth quarter. That is not something we have ever been able to say about Michael Jordan. That's why you're number 2 all time on the Mount Rushmore, not number 1. Let's stop that nonsense. You're right about the roster, but you ain't right as to that's the reason y'all lost in the finals. If you had shown up in the fourth quarter, y'all had won the chip. You'd have 5 championships instead of 4. Let's move on to the next item right now, please, because we're staying within the James family. This one involves his son, however, Mr. Bronny himself, who may be entering the transfer portal after 1 year at USC. Rumors of the move started after former head coach Andy Enfield left the program to take the head coaching job at SMU. LeBron offered his thoughts last night, saying Bronny has some tough decisions coming up and that the family will support him no matter what he decides. I love that by LeBron James, no doubt. Great father, great family man. Like I told you before, my opinions about him in the fourth quarter of 2011 NBA Finals has nothing to do with what I think about him as an overall player and as a role model and as a man and as a family man, businessman and everything else in between. In this particular situation, Bronny's got a lot to prove. There's really no way around it. We can slice it any way we want to, but he's got a lot to prove. Because when you look at Bronny James, in his freshman year at USC coming off the bench, he averaged 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists across 25 games, including 6 starts, averaging 19.4 minutes per game. He shot 36% from the field, 26% from three-point range, scored in double figures 3 times in the 25 games he played. There's a lot of pressure on this young man. He had health issues that we can't ignore either. It was a miracle seeing him on the basketball court, and I'm so happy to see him pursuing his dream. Good kid, no doubt about it. Should he transfer or not? People making a big deal out of it. Hey, the transfer portal is there for a reason. If he wants to go elsewhere, let him go elsewhere. That's his business. Matter of fact, it might behoove him to get away from California because that's where his daddy plays. And as a result, might come to the games, continue to bring more attention on him instead of him having the peace of mind to go someplace else where he could just work on his game, flourish without the pressure inordinately on his shoulders. I don't have a problem with it. What I'm more interested in knowing is where Bronny James will end up going if indeed he chooses to transfer. It should not be in the NBA. Because based on his resume in his first year in college, if he was to take his talents to the professional level, everybody will believe it's because of his dad. And that's not a good look for him. So I don't think he's going to do that, nor do I think he should. What I think he should do is find the right program to go to on a collegiate level and really hone his skills in. Get that year, having that year under his belt, make sure his health is right so he can flourish, because I think the kid's got some skills. I think he's got potential, but I also think we're wrong to just be talking about him. Something inside of me tells me we should be paying just as much attention to Bryce James, LeBron's other kid. I don't think we've mentioned him enough. Everything I'm hearing, that kid's got a lot of potential. I'm just saying. Coming up on the Stephen A. Smith Show, could we see another major move within the Supreme Court? Primetime Deion Sanders in Colorado add another Hall of Famer to their coaching staff. And Miss Angel Reese of LSU makes a big announcement. Something we all need to hear. All that and more up next right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Don't touch that dial. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for Stephen A's Weekly Picks. Now, look, everyone knows that I live and breathe sports, and with the NBA playoffs just around the corner, I need to be right in the middle of that action. And how do I do that? There's only one way. I use Prize Picks. You see, Prize Picks is the largest fantasy sports platform in all the land with more than 3 million members. And it's incredibly easy to play, by the way, believe it or not. You just choose 2 or more players and pick more or less on their projected in-game stats. But the best part is you can pick and choose players from any of the sports you love to watch, whether it's Caitlin Clark, Steph Curry, Aaron Judge, or even Rory McIlroy. And if you go to prizepicks.com right now and use promo code SAS, you'll receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's right, I didn't stutter. Go to prizepicks.com. Type in my initials SAS and get a first-time deposit match up to $100. And go to the Prize Picks app to be able to see my picks for today. Now, let's get to them. Here we are. Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons, more or less than 36.5 points, rebounds, assists combined. It's the Detroit Pistons, y'all. I got to go with less. How the hell can I say more with anything involving the Detroit Pistons? That's just not how I feel about them. It's just not how I feel about it. I'm sorry, I love you, Cade Cunningham. You got a lot of potential, but I'm going to go with less in this particular situation. Next up, the one and only LeBron James. More or less than 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined. It's LBJ. He's been doing his thing. The Lakers have been doing their things, winning 5 straight recently, winning 7 of their last 8 more immediately. I'm going to go with more. We're going to go with LeBron James having more in this particular game. And by the way, they're going up against the Washington Wizards. I know they beat the Milwaukee Bucks the other night. That was an aberration. We can't rely on the Washington Wizards to do much of anything positive. We're going to go with LeBron James and more in this particular situation. Let's go to the next one. Anthony Davis, more or less than 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Easily more. Easily more. There ain't none to debate here. He's on the same team as LeBron. He's playing the same opponent LeBron is playing. Of course he's going to have more than that. That's easy. The only way he won't have more is if they're blowing him out so easily, early, that he's sitting on the bench and just absorbing it all in. That's the only reason that he would have 41.5 less than points, rebounds, and assists. We're going to go with more on this one. And last but not least, Mr. Brandon Miller himself. More or less than 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Okay, they're going up against Portland, these Charlotte Hornets, okay? Brandon Miller's got a good game. He's got a nice game. He's got a lot of potential. Portland, not very impressed with what I've been seeing for them. Got to talk to my man Chauncey Billups about that in the days and weeks to come, no doubt about that. I'm going to go with more in this particular situation, more Brandon Miller in this one. So again, recapping the 4 choices that I had available. Cade Cunningham, less. LeBron James, more. Anthony Davis, more. Brandon Miller, more. This is Stephen A. talking to you. You know I'm usually right about this stuff, right? Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Sometimes, if not all times. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube, where I come to you at the very least every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just wanted to take a moment before I move on to additional topics to give my level of gratitude to all of you out there who've been following and subscribing to the show. We've now eclipsed 606,000 subscribers and counting. We continue to grow by over 1,000 per day right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube, and that doesn't even count what we've been doing in the audio stratosphere, courtesy of our relationship with iHeartRadio. So I can't thank you all enough for supporting me, for supporting this show. I ask that you keep it coming so I can keep on coming. The more support you give me, the more I'm going to keep on bringing it to you. And while you're doing that, let me not stop you from picking up a copy of my New York Times best-selling memoir, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes. It's now in paperback. You can go to straightshooterbook.com. Once again, that's straightshooterbook.com. Once again, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate the love and support. Keep it all coming. It's doing a lot for me, and believe me, I know that I have a lot to be thankful for, and my audience is first and foremost amongst them. So thank you. Let's move on to this next subject that I wanted to tackle real quick. A couple of subjects I wanted to tackle real quick. Coach Primetime Deion Sanders, head coach at the University of Colorado, added another Hall of Famer to his coaching staff, and that would be a guy by the name of Mr. Warren Sapp, who joins the crew as a graduate assistant and senior quality control analyst. Sapp's pro football resume is nothing short of outstanding. But the former Super Bowl champion has had some off-the-field issues since retiring, including a 2015 arrest for assault and soliciting a prostitute. He also pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor domestic violence charge. In both cases, Sapp avoided jail time with plea agreements. We're bringing this up because the university confirmed that Sapp is enrolled in continuing education classes, and that athletic director Rick George personally met with Sapp to clearly articulate the department's standards and expectations. to which Sapp acknowledged and agreed. Warren Sapp is somebody that I've known for years in the interest of full disclosure. I'm very, very cool with this brother. He's very knowledgeable about the game of football. He's very accomplished. When he speaks, you must listen. Make no mistake about it. And the fact is, nobody's flawless. Everybody makes mistakes. And I'm of the mindset that unless you're incarcerated, you're out in the streets of America, it's better for all of us that you're gainfully employed so you can contribute to society instead of milking from society. And I think that a guy like primetime Deion Sanders, who's clearly established himself as a preeminent face in the sport, who has the cachet to give additional brothers a chance and an opportunity to really show their mettle, not just in terms of playing, but in the way they think about the game and their ability to coach the game and influence young minds, particularly highlighting the minefields and the potholes that you could ultimately run into, teaching kids how to avoid those things, learning from your own mistakes. I think there's a lot that Warren Sapp can bring to the table, and I think there's a lot he will bring to the table. I completely support primetime Deion Sanders facilitating this opportunity for Warren Sapp. I couldn't be happier that Warren Sapp is involved in some capacity back in the game of football. I love it. Congratulations, my brother. All the best to you. Stay out of trouble. Don't get yourself in no mess. You're influencing young minds. You've learned from your mistakes. Now show them that and make sure they learn for the better. Let me move on to the next item. Let's move on to the NBA G League, where history was made as Stockton Kings head coach Lindsey Harding became the first woman to be named Coach of the Year. She earned this latest honor after guiding the Kings to a league best 24-10 regular season record. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Lindsey Harding, she's also the first black female head coach in the G League. Congratulations, major props to you. And I hope that this is a nugget of awareness that can be provided to the masses at large, particularly pro sports leagues, that it doesn't just have to be men who are coaching these young men. There are plenty of women who are qualified. And the way I look at it, whether it's Gino Auriemma in college or one of those males coaching in the WNBA, as far as I'm concerned, if men are allowed to coach in women's sports, women should be allowed to coach in men's sports. I would love to see Becky Hammons, head coach for the two-time reigning defending WNBA champion Las Vegas Aces. I would love to see her coaching in the National Basketball Association. I think she deserves the opportunity to do so, and I think she'd do a hell of a job. And this lady, Lindsey Harding, major props to you. You're being a trailblazer. You're paving the way, because doing what you're doing, the world is going to have to take notice, and you will deserve it. You will deserve credit for that. So congratulations, nothing but the best to you. Way to raise up and do your thing. Speaking of the WNBA, by the way, another big-time name just declared for the WNBA draft. LSU's very own Angel Reese officially made the announcement this afternoon, where she's expected to be a top 10 pick. Reese played her final college basketball game Monday night in the Elite Eight, falling to Iowa and Caitlin Clark, who advanced to the Final Four. However, she made headlines in her post-game comments, where she detailed how life has been difficult in the spotlight since LSU won it all last year. My former colleague, Emmanuel Acho, now at FS1, had this to say about Angel Reese this week. Quote, Angel Reese, you can't be the big bad wolf and then kind of cry like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Nobody mourns when the villain catches an L. And Angel Reese, you're self-proclaimed to be the villain. End quote. I think that's a bit excessive. Like Emmanuel Acho, got mad respect for him, but we don't have to always agree. I think that when you take into account the fact that this is a young lady, yes, she did wear the villain role on her sleeve, no doubt about that. She didn't do a lot to help herself when she was winning the NCAA championship last year against Iowa, and she was taunting Caitlin Clark. We saw that. But did we forget that Caitlin Clark had been doing the same thing to numerous opponents throughout that season last year? That it wasn't until she was humbled in that national championship game against LSU that she dialed it back a little bit? Where were you then, Emmanuel Acho? Where was everybody then? I'm not calling you out per se, Emmanuel Acho, because you're big-time talent. I got a lot of respect for you. You know I love your brother, who works with me on First Take on ESPN during my day job. But the bottom line is that when you look at Angel Reese, it's not like she didn't have a point. Now, Emmanuel Acho is not totally wrong. You can't want to be the villain. You can't pride yourself in being the villain, and then you lose, and all of a sudden you succumb to those emotions. That is true to some degree. But usually when you lose and you have an opportunity to sit back and reflect, there's a mountain of emotions that get heaped on your shoulders, and it's hard to hold it in. Not to mention when teammates are coming to your defense because they realize how the insults against you have been so personalized by adults who have nothing to do with the game. They do nothing but play the role of spectators. And these adults who are supposed to set shining examples act as belligerent as children do at times. That's the kind of heat that Angel Reese was taking. Now, one of the things that we can't ignore, that part of the reason it was tough for Angel Reese when they lost Monday night is because LSU got their asses handed to them. Excuse my language, but it is necessary in this particular situation. Caitlin Clark gave it to them. Dropped 41, 9 of 18 shooting from three-point range, 9 of 20 to be exact, I'm sorry. And by the way, she put on an absolute show. She came out shooting from the logo and took it to them. She was clearly the best player on the court and bust their living you know what. So when you get it handed to you the way LSU got it handed to them, I'm sorry, that is a lot to absorb. It really, really is. Butt whippings, that'll do that to you sometimes. But it doesn't mean that what Angel Reese was subjected to since winning the national championship last year was justifiable. Some of it is excessive. We know what kind of a cruel society that we live in. And I think that although there are points to be made against Angel Reese, like Emmanuel Acho did, I think it's important to contextualize it properly and to recognize the fact that, hey, some of it was excessive. Death threats, really? She didn't deserve that. The constant and continuous vitriol, she didn't deserve all that. No, she wasn't perfect. Yes, she got in your face. Yes, she talked, but she's not a scrub. She's not somebody who was non-productive. She was a champion. And I think that Angel Reese should be remembered as that as much as anything else. That's all I wanted to say about that, ladies and gentlemen. Thought it was important to say. Still to come, more news in the Sean P. Diddy Combs case. And is it time for a member of the Supreme Court to step aside? I'll get into all of that next, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show, right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Moving on to the latest in the criminal investigation of Sean P. Diddy Combs. Misa Hilton, the mother of Combs' son, Justin Combs, is speaking out after federal agents raided the home of the music mogul March 25th. On Tuesday, Hilton shared an edited video on Instagram of home surveillance footage of law enforcement entering the LA property, fanning out across the home with guns drawn, searching for evidence. Both of Diddy's sons, Justin and Christian, can be seen in the video being detained and handcuffed in a hallway inside the home before they're taken outside. Hilton claims her son has hired an attorney to investigate, quote, the excessive use of force and vowed to fight for justice utilizing every imaginable resource. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Here's the reason why. In the age of brutality on the part of some police officers from Homeland Security busting into the home, guns drawn, obviously not a good look, obviously a bit excessive to say the least in terms of the optics. When it comes to excessive force, simply grabbing your sons and putting them in handcuffs and peaceably taking them outside. In an age and a day where unarmed black men have been shot and killed, at the very least assaulted on several occasions, this doesn't meet the standard. So good luck with that. Knock yourself out. That's not the story. The story here is, what were they looking for? None of us know. P. Diddy, rumors of sex trafficking and what have you. These are the kind of things that are going on, where his name is being associated with everybody from Harvey Weinstein to the late Jeffrey Epstein, to R. Kelly himself. That's the issue. I don't know P. Diddy that well. I'm wishing him nothing but the best. I swear, I hope he's innocent. I hope all of this is nothing more than an investigation that doesn't have his name attached to anything in line with something that you're guilty of illegal activities in any way, because Lord help them if it is. Make no mistake about it. I will tell you this, Homeland Security, as Areva Martin came on this very show and pointed out, they don't show up for nothing. Something's fishy. Now, whether it's directly involving P. Diddy or whether they're trying to utilize him to dime out others, something is awry. Something is awry. And when a case that serious, where Homeland Security, not the LAPD, but Homeland Security in both Miami and LA, when they're both involved, let's just say it doesn't look good. Again, we pray that P. Diddy has nothing to do with this, that he's innocent of all the allegations being leveled against him. But it ain't a good look at all. Make no mistake about it, especially when we're talking about underage girls, sex trafficking, and things of that nature. Lord help them if there's a shred of guilt attached to these allegations. Lord help them. Let me move on to another subject, because it involves the nation's capital, where some liberal commentators are saying that Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is 69 years of age and a lifelong diabetic, that she should retire while Joe Biden is president and the Democrats control the Senate. Sotomayor is the oldest member of the court's liberal wing. Now, while Democratic senators are not joining calls for Sotomayor to step down, they are expressing unease that history could repeat itself. You may recall that 81-year-old Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg refused to step down in 2014 to allow then-President Barack Obama the opportunity to name a liberal successor. Ginsburg ultimately died in September of 2020, which allowed then-President Donald Trump to replace her with conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett and swing the Supreme Court sharply to the right. Why did I want to point this out? Because once again, the Democrats and their potential arrogance are getting in the way. I am not going to be silent about this. Why am I not going to be silent about it? Because what you're doing ain't working. And somebody needs to say it. You still got a chance. In like 6 or 7 polls, Trump is ahead. Biden is sliding with blacks. Biden is sliding with Latinos. What are we going to do, sit idly by and let things keep happening with the Democratic Party? Yeah, you've got a little bit unease, but you're not calling for Sotomayor to retire. Why not? Call for her to retire. Call for her to retire. If you think something's going to happen to her because her health is being compromised and she might not be around, and God help us if Trump wins the election and then she's still on the courts, but she ultimately passes away, he'll be able to shift the pendulum from 6-3 to 7-2 in favor of the conservatives on the court. Is that what you want? Why are we bringing this up? Because with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, God bless her soul, we don't talk about this enough. So let me recount for y'all some of the reports that have been out there for years. When Barack Obama was in office, the administration wanted Ruth Bader Ginsburg to retire. She was struggling, having battled cancer. Her health wasn't ideal. She had creeped up there significantly in age. And they said, hey, retire so we can put another court on a justice. Do you know what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said at that particular moment in time? You know what the report said that she said? She didn't want to step down because she wanted a female to appoint her successor. Ladies and gentlemen, she assumed Trump would lose and Hillary Rodham Clinton would win in 2016. And because of an assumption, instead of the court being split 5-4, it ultimately shifted to 6-3 in favor of the conservatives because Ruth Bader Ginsburg made the assumption that Hillary Rodham Clinton would not lose to Donald Trump. She thought about herself and the fact that despite all of her great work throughout the years, that she herself wanted a female to appoint her successor. She looked through her lens, not through the big collective lens. And liberals across America lament how much it's cost their party. Now we fast forward to the year 2024. Is Sonia Sotomayor going to do the same thing? Is the Senate Democrats going to allow her to do the same thing? Are congressional figures going to allow her to do the same thing? Are we going to sit idly by and say nothing? History tells you you shouldn't do that. History tells you that if you're a liberal, you should insist that anybody that's on that side of the aisle, that's contemplating stepping down, or that some believe should step down, in this case, Sonia Sotomayor, 69 and a lifelong diabetic, you should push for that. And you should push for it now, because it ain't looking good for Biden. There's no guarantee that he's going to be in office come January of 2025. And by the way, that ain't because of his age or some quote unquote slippage. It's because he will have lost the election. Wake up! Think ahead and stop arrogantly assuming that the votes are going to be there for you to have. Because you don't know that anymore. Not with this administration, not with these problems in the world, and not with Trump reportedly gaining traction amongst blacks and Latinos, according to the polls, not Stephen A. Wake the hell up. Stop assuming, stop taking for granted, stop letting your arrogance shine as a party. Compete. Look ahead. Think ahead. And you might actually win something when it really, really counts. Other than the midterms, of course, because that red wave never happened. That's all I got to say about that. Now let's go to the screen and look at some of these tweets, y'all, before I get on out of here for the day. Let's look at it right now. At Agent GG's, Stephen A. LeBron currently has the NBA's all-time points record of 40,017 points. Peter Bott, am I pronouncing that right? Peter Bott has the Fortnite solo victory cup elimination record at 41. Which record is more likely to be broken? And who is the true GOAT? Well, I don't understand your question here. Last time I checked, LeBron James already broke the record. He's already the NBA's all-time leading scorer. So what are you talking about? Makes really no sense to me, okay? His record more likely to be broken? Is that what you're asking me? I'm gonna say no. Because LeBron is still going. Not only now, but he's gonna play next year too. LeBron's probably gonna play 2 more years. At the very least 1. Next season might be his last. So taking that into consideration, that'll be 21 years in the NBA at age 40. I don't see too many people doing that, particularly in this day and age where the pace of play has elevated, where you see more athleticism than ever before, where you see age and attrition kicking in more flagrantly than in years past because of conditioning and fresh legs needing to play a role in somebody's progress and proficiency. I don't see that happening. I'm going to say LeBron's record is more likely not to be broken. Let's go to the next one, please. At Cut Schumacher, right? Stephen A., my question to you is, who you got winning in a fight? Val Kilmer's Batman or Michael Keaton's Batman? That's a hard one. If you told me Heath Ledger, well, that's the Joker, by the way, but Christian Bale playing that, I would have said Christian Bale. But between these two, I'm just looking at them right now. Okay, Val Kilmer, does he look like somebody's gonna beat somebody up? No. Michael Keaton does. So I would go with Michael Keaton, based on the photo, not really knowing what one would do over the other. I'm a roll with Michael Keaton's because I like the more menacing look right here with the Batman outfit on. He looks more menacing, more rough. I like that. Let's go to the next one, please. At Jerry Carlin writes, what is the most heated you've ever been on air in your professional career? Damn, that's a good question. It's hard to remember that one. If I can remember correctly, the most heated I've ever been was when I had there was an individual that was doing work with the National Football League that was really, really against the use of the N-word by NFL players. It was a black man, and he brought up how, and really encouraged the NFL to penalize African Americans who use the N-word. Now, we live in a day and age where we should certainly refrain from use of the N-word, and I understand that. But please be clear that when black people use the N-word talking to one another, it's not meant in the same way as if it's coming out of the mouth of a white person talking to a black person and using that word. And so to imagine a black man that knows from an historical context that there was a different race of people who made the word heinous, who made the word iniquitous, literally encouraging the National Football League, being run by white men, to literally implement punishment towards two African Americans that happen to be talking. They might be talking smack to one another on the field and they use the N-word. I found that incredibly appalling. And I went ballistic about that because it wasn't about the use of the N-word. It's who is somebody that isn't black telling black people how they should or when they should or shouldn't use a word that you yourself made iniquitous in the society and made insidious in the society. How dare you involve yourself in that kind of dialogue and that kind of diatribe? It pissed me off. And I went on the air and I spoke about that. I think that's the most heated that I have been. There have been many moments where I've been heated, but in terms of how I was feeling inside, it was something that I found highly offensive. That's what I remember. Again, not encouraging anybody to use the N-word. I'm simply saying, I don't believe somebody white has the right to tell black people talking amongst themselves how they should speak to one another and what verbiage they should use, particularly when we don't use it with the intent that white folks calling us those words use it with. That was my biggest thing. Last tweet right here. Let's go to it. Stephen A., this is at PPL Have More Fun. People have more fun. Hey, Stephen A., I've got a pet bird, and he's one of the ones that talks and repeats things. Well, I was going this last week for a work trip, and after my girl left for work this morning, my bird keeps yelling out another man's name. Do I confront her? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking. No, you're not. Hell no, you're not. If that bird is known to repeat things, if you're literally telling me he's a pet bird and he's one of the ones that talks and repeats things, so you know his character. And if he is repeating the name of another dude, one or two things happen. She was on the phone with that brother in earshot of the bird, or he was at your crib while you were gone. And the fact that he's saying that name, but she didn't tell you, is all you need to know. Her ass is corrupt. Don't trust her. You need to investigate that matter. Now, me personally, I'm a little bit different. That would be, for me, that'd be grounds for dismissal. If I suspect, why even bother with you? Why even bother with you? That's me. That's just how I am. Because I don't particularly give a damn. If I got a reason to not trust you, you can go. That's how I roll. And sometimes I'll let you go and you standing right in front of me. You just gone in my heart, but we can still have a good time. That's how I roll. I'm not advising you to do that because some people can't handle that. But that bird, that's your bird that you brought into your house that talks and repeat things. And he is saying the name of another man, not you. And it only happened after you were gone and you came back. It didn't happen before that. You got some problems at home, my brother. I say you raise that eyebrow over that one. Seriously. Let me go to the phones before I get on out of here for the day. 888-SAS-5303. That's 888-727-5303 before we get on out of here. Just a few calls before we get on out of here. Kyle, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Stephen A?
What's going on?
I got to ask you, if you're in a bar fight, what NBA duo are you picking to back you up? Any era.
Any era?
Yep.
Well, first of all, Charles Oakley, rather, is definitely one of them. That's definitely one of them. I'm picking Charles Oakley. That's number one on my list. Might not know this name. I'm going to tell you Maurice Lucas. Used to play for the Portland Trail Blazers. Him and Charles Oakley are two names that come to mind. If I need enforcers, if I need to be protected, that's the route I'm going to. There are other names that you can bring into the equation. There's Xavier McDaniels of the world, along with various others, and Anthony Mason, God rest his soul. There's a few. Tree Hollins once chased Lionel Hollins into the stands. Tree Rollins, rather, once chased Lionel Hollins into the stands. You know, I remember that. Shaquille O'Neal is a big boy that could hurt somebody. I'm not ignoring that. But in terms of actual enforcers, dude that was there on the basketball court, simply to be enforcers, I would tell you a Charles Oakley, and I would tell you a Maurice Lucas. That is what I would go with. Appreciate the call. John in North Carolina, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, John?
Hey, Stephen A., how you doing?
I'm all right. Talk to me.
A quick question, too. So how do you feel about my Browns and my Cavs? I'm actually in Canton, Ohio. Also, you are very famous with the memes. One I love and my fiance loves is you famously said, "Who was on crack?" Did you anticipate that, or did you go into you saying that with any fervor or any outcome and that becoming a thing?
I didn't anticipate anything when I said that about Lamar Odom, one of the nicest people that you'd ever meet. But I was making the point that one of the first investments Phil Jackson made when he took over presidency, the New York Knicks, was to pursue Lamar Odom, who had been on crack. It was true. And it was a natural emotion that came out because I'm very passionate about my New York Knicks. And Phil Jackson obviously left a lot to be desired as the president of basketball operations. I certainly didn't mean for Lamar Odom to be hurt by it because I got a lot of love for him. I've known him for years, but he has had problems. And his problems have been very, very much publicized. And some of that stuff was publicized to such a degree he was on the Kardashians talking about it. So we can't forget that. That's number one. Number two, to get to your first question, being in Canton, Ohio, and talking about the Browns and the Cavaliers, the Browns got a lot of promise. Their defense is big time. Myles Garrett is a stud. We all know this. Deshaun Watson has to step up. You've got Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, and now in Pittsburgh, both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, two quarterbacks, quite frankly, that Deshaun Watson should be better of. Now, he's had enough time to recover from his transgressions that kept him away from the sport for pretty much a couple of seasons. It's time to show up and produce, because if this brother shows up and produce, Cleveland got a shot to compete for a Super Bowl title. If he doesn't show up and produce, they're nothing more than what we saw last year, good enough to get to the playoffs before getting smoked by a team like the Houston Texans. And so I would tell you that about the Browns. As it pertains to the Cavs, look, they're a good team. And Donovan Mitchell is somebody that I want on the New York Knicks very, very badly. He's a stud. I think that Cleveland's a good team, but they're not a great team. And I expect them to be in the playoffs. They possibly may win a first-round series, but it wouldn't surprise me if they got pushed home in the first round, but they definitely ain't getting past the second round. That's all I got to tell you about them, man. But I appreciate the call. Thank you. Let's go to Aaron in Lake County. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Aaron? How are you?
Good, Stephen A. How are you? How was
I'm all right.
Easter?
Talk to me. The Easter was great. What's going on?
I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and my question was going to be that assuming if the Bears come out of the draft with Caleb Williams at 1 and another top-tier player at number 9, what do you see their ceiling being this season, considering all the additions they've had and what have you with Keenan Allen and whatnot?
I think their best shot is to be an average team. No matter what I think about Caleb Williams and the stud that he is, there's very few C.J. Strouds running around where you're going to show up and show out in your rookie year. Not to mention the fact that I think that C.J. Stroud was helped immensely by the coach that is D'Amico Ryans and the defensive rookie of the year that is Will Anderson that basically captained that defense. I think that it's a lot to be asking the Chicago Bears to measure up to that. Eberflus is still a head coach. He's not bad, he's not awful, but he didn't knock anybody's socks off in working with Justin Fields last year. I know they still got DJ Moore as a receiver. I know that they can do some things, but it just remains to be seen. When I think about the Chicago Bears in the NFC North with Detroit and Green Bay having shown what they've shown this previous season, I see a third place finish at best, which means you'll be outside looking in at the playoffs. You've got an opportunity to go, if I had to guess, I would say about 8-9 or 7-10. Somewhere along those lines is what I see your record being, which means you'll be home watching the playoffs with me. But nevertheless, that don't mean that you'll be awful. I think we'll see moments of promise from the Caleb Williams of the world and from Chicago in terms of the direction that they're moving forward in, but I don't think it would be good enough for them to be in the playoffs. I appreciate the call, Aaron. Thank you so much, man. Have a good day. Take care of yourself. Finally, before I get on out of here for the night, the CNN show, King Charles, hosted by the wonderful Gayle King and my buddy Charles Barkley, airs tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. Guess what? Yours truly will be a guest. Check it out. You never know what we may see. That's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Looking forward to being back with you in a couple of days. Until then, peace and love, everybody. Be safe. God bless. Talk to you in a couple of days. I'm out.